Alright, so you just received that interview, you just received that offer or that email that says, congratulations, you got an interview to this school. And you're excited, you're genuinely excited because you've been working in this for many years. But then the sudden thought of, oh, wow, I actually have an interview now. What if I mess this up? What if I don't get accepted to medical school? Well, don't worry, I got you guys covered. I'm going to offer you guys a few tips and advice on how to have a successful interview day so that you guys get accepted into medical school. Alright, if you guys don't know me, my name is Sean and I'm a current first year medical student at the University of Toledo College of Medicine. And my first tip of advice would definitely have to be to check SDN for common interview questions. This might seem controversial as maybe some of you guys already heard of SDN or even the Reddit pre-med websites as ones that are quite toxic, I guess, and obviously they have some type of bias. But the interview feature for SDN is actually pretty good because usually people in the past years they submit questions that they got from the actual interview day, and this is very helpful because what you can do is you can scroll to each of the questions at a particular school, and then you could kind of see what questions people post the most, and usually with those questions that are more frequent you could add into a separate document so that you have a list of common questions that students often forget. And the reason why you want to do the common questions is because those are the questions that most likely the interviewers are actually going to ask you, so it makes sense to add those common questions instead of questions that are not already asked there. And in terms of picking or knowing which common question to ask, you kind of just get it from experience or having many interviews, but essentially it's the ones where you're gonna have see the questions the most, if you know what I mean. Alright, my second tip of advice, and this is a very important tip, is I really cannot stress this enough. Please do as many mock interviews as possible. I mean, like people say, practice makes perfect, and the more mock interviews you do, or the better performance in interview you're gonna do on your interview day. So usually schools, or really not schools, your undergrad school, if whether you're in school or I've been out of school for years, usually the pre-health services or even your career services, they should offer you some kind of mock service program or mock service interviews that you can do so that you be able to, of course, prepare for your actual real interview. What my alma mater did, which was Rutgers, is we had like a virtual website where we can record ourselves, and essentially based on our video they give us feedback on how well we did in the interview day. And this was helpful because especially with this time around where virtual interviews are more common, you'll be able to see, okay, this is what I need to improve on, and these are stuff I am performing well on. Another thing you always could do is ask other people, so you can ask your friends, families, etc. What I did is sometimes I'll ask my friends of not only tips and advice but also do mock interviews, and especially if you can find a friend that's a current medical student, because they will of course know what can make a good interview since they're in medical school obviously. And the last thing I usually did was I will also refer to our pre-med Reddit to see if anyone else wanted to do a mock interview, and there'll always be people around that's going to want to do that. So that's always a good thing to do too if you don't have like any friends to do a mock interview with. And I will say another thing is that for MMIs, which stands for the multi-minute interviews, for those mock interviews you want to be able to adhere to the time policy that you got the interview from. So let's say we got an interview from, let's say, I don't know, University of Houston, and they give you 10 minutes for the mock interview. You want to be able to do that mock interview in 10 minutes and not do it any more, any less, so that you can sort of stimulate how that mock interview process will go. Alright, I would say my third tip is to research the schools you actually receive an interview from. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean you should be researching about stuff such as, of course, your academics and your curriculum, your student life, housing, research, community service, residency placement, board scores, match rates, etc. And you want to be able to have a picture of what this school is so that you can see, okay, do I see myself attending this school if I get accepted, or is this a school that I'm not really actually interested in as before? Now, you should already have a good idea of this, but usually it gets pretty easy to sort of forget the specifics about each school when applying to so many medical schools. So I'll definitely take extensive research of each school so that you know what you get yourself into, obviously. And based on doing that type of research, you should have specific questions in mind about the school that's not easily researchable, you know? So don't ask, for example, oh, what clubs does this school offer? No, that would not be a good question because you can easily search that through the website. A better question to ask will be someone, maybe if you looked at a specific program, you could say like, for example, oh, what are some events that are held here? Or, you know, in this program, do they offer, you know, any shadowing, or do they offer a community service at this specific club that's not listed on the website already? Those would be good questions because then you know, okay, this student has. Now the next tip I have is to draft bullet points. For the reason why I say this is because for your, you know, when you're actually performing interviews, you don't want to sound like a robot. You don't want to sound like you read it off a script. You want to sound as genuine as possible. So by doing bullet points, you sort of have these starting points that you can build upon on. And then of course, once you have those bullet points, you can expand on those bullet points. You don't want to just have a paragraph and try to regurgitate whatever you just memorized. No, you want to be able to have bullet points and then expand on those bullet points so that you can sound more personable. You can also sound like you're not a robot. So essentially the goal is that medical students or medical schools, they want to see and make sure that applicants are as sincere and genuine as possible. They want to see that you have a personality. So essentially the goal is just to pass the vibe check. Just make sure you actually sound like a human that has a personality instead of a robot that has no type of personality. Again, they know how competitive this process is. They know that, you know, we work hard trying to get community service, research, everything necessary to get acceptance. They just want to see that you can actually fit into school and that you're a good human being. Literally, that's it. Alright, my next tip, and this is a very important tip, is, again, I keep saying it for almost every of these videos I do for the middle school application process, is to tie the mission statement and your personal answers together in a way that makes it seem like you have a connection to the school. So obviously this will allow the medical school to see your personality and how, you know, you fit to their school, as, you know, you're pulling stuff from your experiences and then you're saying how you learn from a specific experience so that they can see that, you know, that experience was worthwhile for you. And of course you want to connect the mission statement to your answers as well. So a good story I have from this last year's application cycle was, there was a school that I got an interview from, and there's a school I did not even expect to get an interview from. I think some of you guys already know what the school is based on the past videos I made, but essentially this school is more research heavy and my application was definitely a lot more, let's say, mentoring, community service heavy application. Don't get me wrong, I did have research, but it wasn't as big as like my service stuff that I did. So based on my interview experience, I felt like it went decent, but the only thing I didn't do was that I didn't really tie any research experiences to, you know, their mission statement. And I think that's what probably caused me to not get accepted to the school. So definitely, like I said, even if you have a narrative, you want to still make sure to adjust based on the school's mission statement and try to tie those experiences that are relevant to the mission statement to your answer so that you can increase the chances of getting interview acceptance. So for example, a good thing you could do is, let's say if you apply to service related school, you should be pulling service related experiences to your answers based on the questions that they ask you so that they can know, okay, this student can contribute to this medical school by, you know, service, community service, or it could be, you know, something just service related. This next tip is pretty obvious, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The next tip is to definitely be professional. So this means showing up early. So don't try to show up, you know, right when the interview time starts. You're showing up like 5-10 minutes early. Another thing, of course, is to always have business professional attire. Again, this is pretty obvious, but I see some students have business casual, and especially when you're the only person that has business casual, it's just not a good look. So you definitely want to make sure to have the proper attire, and of course have a good impression is very important, especially in the virtual interview settings, because they can't get that gauge of interest as much as an in-person interview. So you want to make sure, you know, you smile, you're, you know, interactive with the faculty, you ask the questions, don't do anything inappropriate. these are some things that can make you have a good impression to whoever staff or medical students you're talking to during the interview. My next tip, and this is a decent important one as well, is you should be knowing certain type of answers like the back of your head. So usually the 3 most common questions that you're pretty much going to hear in almost every interview is 1, why do you want to go to medicine? 2, tell me a little bit more about yourself. And 3, why this specific school? So let's start off with that first question, why medicine? Now this question should be formulated around what you want for your personal statement. So what I did usually is that I usually just paraphrase in a very concise summary for my personal statement why I wanted to do medicine. And a good thing you also could do is, add a few more points or adjust, a few points you said on your personal statement based on the school. But essentially, you should be more or less saying what you pretty much said in your personal statement in a summary that's concise. Now, for the wider school answer, this one is just going to be specific reasons that you found based on your research why you're interested in the school. So this is where researching the school helps so much, because if you actually research the school, you'll be able to know exactly the intentions of you, applying and of course potentially matriculating in the school. So that's really important as well. This answer should be so unique that no one could have even thought about the answer that you just said, And for the tell me about yourself, this should be personable. So you should be talking about stuff like your background, perhaps some hobbies you've done, maybe some values, and maybe your family. So I feel like for this one, it should be as personal as possible and try to avoid anything academic related. So this could be like, school, even activities I wouldn't really go too much upon too much, because again, it doesn't show you about yourself. So I also just say anything that's personable, like the stuff that I mentioned before. And if you say any weak answers, or if you have anything in your application that can serve questions, they will question you about it. So just be prepared to answer that. So another also important thing is you should know your application backhand and front, because they could question you on anything. So whatever you put in your application, just make sure you're able to back it up and actually be able to explain that specific part of your application. That's very important, because if you can't explain a certain part of your application, they're going to question you about the integrity of that program or that activity you did. They'll be like, oh, did this student actually did the program, or did this student lie potentially? So definitely make sure to 100% be able to back up every activity that you put in that application, whether it's your primaries or your secondaries. My last question is to definitely ask questions. And again, this is relatively obvious because you want to show interest to the schools. So again, this could be questions, such as the stuff you look up online, you want to learn more about. Or this could be simply from the interviewer you're talking to, and maybe you found interest in what they're doing in terms of medicine and research. You can ask more about that. Just anything that is specific and that could show the schools that you're actually, doing research and that you're genuinely interested in the medical school program. Alright, that's it guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, give this a huge thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more medical school content. And I'm just gonna say it again, shameless plug. For you guys that don't already know, I have a new Instagram page for Pacific Medical School, so follow me in there. I'm gonna put it right here so that you guys can see. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I'm gonna be able to put more vlogs, but I will say started to become a little more involved in Pacific programs, so I gotta just see how much time I actually have to fit those vlogs in. So it might take me a little bit longer to have another vlog, but I'm trying my best, and I'm gonna try as best as possible to give you guys more vlogs, of course. But until next time, I'll see you guys later, and peace.